Canterbury Stewie Trader with you for a very important video talking about how to quit your job with this risk management plan. So let's not waste time and get right into it. The obvious disclaimer: please take other factors into consideration if you want to consider a transition from trading full time from a job if you have one. A big savings account, you're going to need that. Consider your health insurance, what are going to be taxes, multiple streams of income. You want to have that as well before making the decision to go quote unquote all in. Always remember as well, a prop firm or a broker can shut down, so be mindful. One thing I've learned: life rarely goes as planned. So things can happen, so just be aware. Okay, do your due diligence and research before you try to attempt something like this. So now that we have that out of the way, let's get to it. These are the questions that you need to answer in order to make that transition from working full time or part time to the task of trading full time. The first thing you need to know: how much money do you make in a day if you have a job? Okay, simple math on that. Just look at your monthly income, just divide it by 25 or 30. Either way, however many days you work, just do the math on that. And as well, it's also helpful to know how much you make per week. Okay, so how much do I make a day? How much do I make a week? Very important. What are your current expenses right now? What's your rent, your car note, if you have children, your daycare, if you have that, gas costs, how much do you spend on food a month? You need to know all the money that's coming in and going out. Okay. As well, how big is your trading account going to be? Do you just want to match your current income or do you want to actually exceed it? The best thing about trading is your income is unlimited, but at the same time, bare minimum, it does need to be matched, okay, or as close to it as possible, unless you plan on cutting some expenses. And how many trades per week should I take in order to make this happen, per week or per day? So, the thing that we want to keep in mind first off is what I like to call the 10% principle. A good target to strive for is a 10% return on whatever your balance is per trade. So if you have a 2% risk to reward ratio, you need to be shooting for 1 to 5 because 5 times 2 is 10, obviously. I prefer 3% because even though 3% with a 1 to 2, with the 1 to 3 risk to reward ratio is 9%, it's close enough to 10. All right. Now, can that 1% make a difference? Yes, but at the same time, it's close enough as to where the difference is not that much. So have in your mind that whatever your balance is when you start this undertaking, you should be able to, on any given trading day, make 10% of whatever the balance is on your account. So for instance, if you have a $500 account, you're in a position to make at least $50 every time you take a trade. Okay. But you're not risking 10% of your account to do that. You're only risking 3. So you risk 3 to make 9 or 10. Okay. I hope that makes sense. So you're not risking 10% to make 10%. No, you're risking 3% to make 9 or 10%. Okay, that's how that goes. Now, the power of a plan. So I'm going to introduce you to, of course, this is a fictional character. This is an AI image, so this is not a real person. But let's meet Sarah. So Sarah makes $2,500 a month. She works at Walmart. Okay, so she's figured out that across 25 working days, she makes about $100 a day. So she has the plan where, I want to at least have the option to work, but I need to have a plan. Now, she doesn't have any children. She lives with her parents, so her expenses are fairly low. So now that she knows how much money she needs in her trading account, now she knows how much money she makes. So now she needs to know what it's going to take to transition from working to having the option to work from trading. So in order to make $500 a week, that's what she needs, because she makes roughly $100 a day, working 5 days a week. Okay, so she needs a 1 to 3 risk to reward ratio. We'll assume that's her plan, with a 50% win rate. Obviously, you're not going to win 100% of your trades, so we need to make room for the losses. So based on her math, if she takes about 1 trade per day, 5 trades a week, Sarah needs approximately $3,330. That's how much she'll need in her account. If she wants to take 10 trades a week, obviously she has more opportunity to win and also lose, but she needs approximately $1,700 a week. So either one of those would be fine. And I'll show you the results of this for some simulations in just a second. So remember the 10% principle. If she had a $3,300 account, remember she's always in a position now to risk about 99 or $100, but she can also make $297. Okay, roughly 1 to 3. All right. Or if she has a $1,700 account, she could risk about $51 and make about $153 every time she takes a trade, as long as that's her balance or above. Okay, 10%. Okay, give or take. All right. So one approach she can use is a traditional compounding approach. And this is how that would look. So let's say for the smaller example, let's say if she wanted to do $1,700, I want to try to compound that to live off of. I want to use $1,700 to make $500 a week. The main thing that you have to focus on is that your losses over here have to be smaller than the wins, which should be bigger, obviously. Okay, so profit should always be bigger than a loss. So let's go through this. I'm not going to read all of these. You can pause to look at these numbers. But if she starts with 1,700, let's say her first trade's a win. So she risks 51 to make 153. So this is her new balance. Then she loses, wins, loses, wins, loses, wins, loses, wins. So, every other trade is a loss. All right. At the end, because she doesn't take anything out initially, at the end of this trading week, let's say she trades 2 trades a day, 10 trades a week, she turns her $1,700 into $2,246. Okay, 50% win rate. This is just the math, okay, risking a steady 3%, whatever her balance is. All right. Now let's take a look at the other example, though, where she's only going to trade 1 trade a day. All right. Same risk to reward, though, 3% to try to make 9%. So obviously the first trade she'll win, she'll make $300 right there. That's almost her goal of $500 a week. She almost made it all in one day, okay, because this is a bigger account. But let's say she loses the next one, then she wins the next 2 and loses the last one. Now, technically, let's look at this. If she wins, loses, and then wins twice, 1, 2, she technically could be done right here. But I wanted to include the whole 5, but the thing is, when you have a profit target in your mind, if you know you only need $500 and you got 3,300 and then you go up to 4,000, you could just take your 5 and be done and start over next week. But, like I said, I want to include everything just so that you can see it. Okay. But have a profit target for what you want your principal to be at, and then take whatever profit you like and then live off of that. Same thing over here. The highest balance on this account was, let me see. Well, it may have been at the end. No, right here. Okay, $2,300 because the last trade was a loss. She could have stopped right here, 2,300. But let's take a look at the final numbers. Okay, so for the larger account, she started with 3,300. She ended the week with 4,021. She had a net profit of $721. Okay, her goal was only 500. She made 20%. Okay, this is with a 50% win rate. All right. For the smaller account, she went from 1,700 up to 2,246. Her net profit was 500. Okay, so she got a 32% gain for this trading week. Both of these, though, she still exceeded her goal of $500 a month. Okay, now obviously this is pre-tax. I'm not talking about taxes. Everybody's tax situation is different, but this was her net profit from trading. Okay, that's all I'm talking about here. So let's go on with one more alternate risk management plan. There is something that's called limited martingale, which I do use from time to time. It has been helpful to me, but you just have to have the discipline to stick with it. What is limited martingale? Limited martingale is this. If you lose, it's really the plan to either recoup your losses or at a bare minimum, protect your downside when you take a loss. When you risk 3% to get 9%, that's good enough. But if you lose, then what you're going to do is you're only allowed to take 1 more trade per day, but you're going to risk 5% to get 15%. So it's still a 1 to 3 risk to reward ratio. But on your last trade, your trade is the upside is much, much bigger. Okay. But it's still 1 to 3. All right. You just play with the numbers. Now, if 2 losses occur back to back, then you're done for the day. And the next day, you go back down to 3%. Okay, so 2 trades per day because this is high risk than what I just showed you. And keep in mind, too, that if you go on a losing streak on this, using this method, it can hurt you. I want to be very clear about that because remember, you're potentially losing 3% here and 5% here. That's 8%, right? And if you go to the next day and lose another 2, that's another 8%. Okay. And then if you go next, 8, 16, 24, okay, a few more days, you're gonna lose half your account if you don't get some wins. All right. So it's an option, but again, I would limit it severely. All right. This is like a last resort type deal, but let's take a look at the numbers. Okay. So let's walk through this and I'll just show you. We're going to focus on the percents and then our gains. So if we start with a $1,700 account, you're going to risk 3% and you lose. So it's still the same trading day. You list 5% and you lose again. So you've gone from 1,700 down to 1,566. Okay, because you've taken 2 losses in a row. Now let's say the next day, the trading day, you come back, you risk 3% and you win. That's 140. And guess what? You're back in profit because you started with 1,700, and now after this one trade, the next day you're back where you started with a tiny bit of profit of $7. Beautiful. Right? Because you're risking 3 to try to make 9 or 10. Okay? Have a lofty goal. without losing all your money is my point. Okay, so now the next one, let's say you get a 3% loss on the 1700. That's going to take you down to 16. But then you risk 5 to try to make 15 and you win. Okay, so you risked $82 to make $248. And look at this, you've gone from 1700 to 1904. All right, that is awesome. But regardless of this second trade's turnout, the next day you go back down to 3. You don't keep risking 5. You go back, you're hovering between 3 and 5, 3 and 5, and that's it. Okay. So the next trade here, you risk 3%, you lose. You know, you can read the rest of these: a win, a loss, etc., etc. Okay. But at the end of the day, this account goes from 1700 and using the limited martingale at the end of the day to 2583. So started with 1700, ended with 2583. That's a net gain of $883, a 51% gain with a 50% win rate using limited martingale. That is awesome. Okay, that is awesome. Now, will you get 50% every week? Of course not. There'll be some weeks you'll get 40%. There'll be some weeks you'll get 90%. And remember, you're only losing limited martingale when you lose. If you don't win, you're going to stay at 3%. You're only risking 5 as a last resort using limited martingale. All right, now let's take a look at the $3,300 example because it's a 5 trade, because remember, it's still 1 trade per day. And then so you have the loss here, say 2 losses in a row. So you went down from 33 to $3,040. So you lost a little, almost $300 here. Then you got the win. So look at this. You risk 91 to make 273. Because remember, our losses should always our losses should always be smaller than our gains. So yeah, you lost 99 here, you lost 160 here, but you made 273. And look at this. You're up now. When you get your first win, you're back up above your starting balance. It's only $14, but it's a start. Okay, so then you risk 3% again here. You win 298, and then another one, just for this example, you win again 325. I wasn't able to do a complete 50% win rate on an odd number, which was 5. So this just shows 2 losses and 3 wins. A good little winning streak, you're talking about 10, 20, 30% almost. Okay, it didn't work out quite like that, but these were the final numbers. Where you started with $3,300, you ended with $3,900. You made $600 and $638.13. Remember, the goal for this example for Sarah was just $500. So she still made it with a 19% gain, because obviously though she had more money, and as well though doing limited martingale. So that's the limited martingale plan. So I've given you 2 risk structures that you can consider. So let's visit back to Sarah and see what she's going to do. So what Sarah's going to do is this. She worked for 6 months to save up $1,000. Okay, so while she saves, she also used a demo account with $4,000 because that was her principal balance. That's what she wanted to get to. She wanted to have plenty of cushion because she knows she's not the best trader in the world. All right. So her risk management plan, she's going to use traditional compounding. She's not going to do the limited martingale, okay, because it's your choice. This was what was best for her. So she's going to risk 3 to make 9. Okay, so what she did is when she got to $1,000, she went ahead and started trading for real. All right, because she wanted to have enough money to make a difference. She didn't start with $20. All right. So between her trading and compounding the account, and of course making more deposits from her job, she wanted to grow the account to $4,000 as quickly as possible. And after 2 months, she was able to do that. So once she got to the $4,000, her average win rate is around 40% of her trades. Okay, but because of that, she can withdraw about $500 to $700 a week consistently with a $4,000 balance. So let's take a look at her numbers and see how that looks. And as you can see, Sarah's very happy here because she stuck to her plan. She didn't just start out swinging for the fences. She had a plan. So there's her $4,000 balance. She's only going to risk 3%. You notice there's no 5s here. There's only 3s. So, I mean, you can read this, but there's, first 2 were losses. She won, lost one, etc., etc. But remember the 10% principle. Because she has a $4,000 balance, what she's done is she's positioned herself to at least make $400 every single trading day. All right. Or somewhere in that ballpark. Her biggest win this week was about, what is this, $400? Yeah, right here. Okay, $400 right here. So let's see. But in addition to that, look at that, $358, a $300 day, a $300 day. Okay, and then her losses, lost 120, lost 116. Her biggest loss this week looks like it was 145, and her biggest win this week was 400. Okay, so obviously 400 is going to be her biggest win. Definitely exceeded her biggest loss, As long as she can maintain and stay consistent, she'll be fine. As you can see, she's happy because she had her plan and she stuck to it. So in conclusion, Miss Sarah just had a plan and stuck to it. Why can't that be you? Now, I do always recommend having multiple streams of income. 2 minimum is best to me, but the more the merrier. Okay, now the more money you have in your trading account, the less risk you actually need to take. All right, you don't have to risk 10% of your account, 20% of your account if you have a $10,000 account. That's foolish. Okay, now you don't have to win every trade to make a decent income. Okay, but remember, you want to focus on risk to reward, not win rate. Okay, I just used 50% here just to give the. I'm sorry, I used 40%. This is a 40% win rate. I'm sorry, and I'll prove it to you. Notice the wins. This is 1, 2, 3, 4 wins out of 10 trades, and Sarah still made $700. Only winning 4. She lost most of her trades and still made money. Okay? She's happy about that because her wins exceeds her losses. That's all you have to do. Okay? She's disciplined. Okay? So should every trader be. Okay? Because she focuses on risk to reward. So she's not caught up in how many trades can I win. She's caught up in how much money am I making. Okay? So these numbers are just projections. You got to do what works for you. Okay? Now, as well, if you're a high earner, if you make 6 figures, I'm sorry, it's going to be harder for you to do something like this. I'm just going to be honest with you. If you make, 100 grand a year, you got to have a sizable trading account to replace that. Either that, or you got to cut some expenses. I mean, pay off some debt, do something. But it's just the reality of it. Believe it or not, the people who don't make the most money have a leg up on those who make more because they don't need. Sarah was only making $2,500 a month. So for her to do something like this, it's a lot easier. It's easier to walk 1 mile than it is to walk 10. So same principle. She didn't have that far to go. She didn't make a lot of money to begin with. So large sums of money, though, should be with regulated brokers. Now, you can do your own research on that, but I wouldn't recommend having like a $5,000 account with some offshore broker that you don't even know where they, just be careful with your money. That's all I'll say. And regulated brokers, I strongly recommend for your bread and butter account, the account that you're going to depend on to pay your bills. Do not give that to some new broker or some shady broker, or just do your research on good brokers that you can hope that have been in business for a while that you can really trust. Okay. So remember, at the end of the day, it is risk management, not trading, that gets us paid. I haven't talked to you about one trading strategy this whole video. Now, obviously, I trade the candle range theory, but it doesn't matter. This is just the math for risk management. That is really what most traders miss. You could trade in your sleep. It's really not that hard. But where do most traders fail? I promise is risk management. If you master risk management, this can be you. Not trading. Risk management. There is not a single chart in this whole presentation in terms of candlesticks. The chart you need to be focusing on is this. Losses and wins, not green candles and red candles. All right? So I appreciate your time and attention. Formulate your plan, master your risk management, work at it. You can do it. Okay. I believe in your impending success, but you got to start somewhere. So I appreciate your time and attention. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching and take care.